pale horse with royal robe. It is not just a farce ridiculing the king of Persia as a spineless monarch, or Haman as the embodiment of evil. Rather, theologically, it is about a story of unsettling divine absence in the most treacherous time in Jewish history. Where was God when his people needed him the most? Out of the entire Hebrew and Christian canon, Song of Songs and Esther set themselves apart by leaving the name of God out of the texts. This conspicuous absence of God's name becomes the incentive for writing this book. The goal for this book, then, is to examine, meditate, and reflect theologically on the Song of Songs and Esther in relation to the theology of absence, and inquire how these two books function in Old Testament theology. It attempts to address three main questions. 1. What is the nature of God as revealed in texts without his name? 2. How do we think of God when he is perceived to be absent? And 3. What should we do when God is silent or hidden? Method. I will adopt theological interpretation as the primary method of this book. By theological interpretation, I borrow the analogy of digging from Kevin Van Hooser. I attempt to dig into the texts of Song of Songs and Esther in order to find gold in them. This interpretation is characterized by a governing interest in God, the Word and works of God. Its principal thrust is to direct readers' attention to God, to the acts of God in history, to the extent that it helps readers grow in the knowledge of God. I will also adopt William Brown's proposal of theological interpretation by asking two questions. 1. What is the text's theologic? That is, what can be ascertained from the text about God's character and relationship to the world? 2. What is the text's cosmologic? That is, what can be ascertained from the text about the world in its relationship to God and humanity's place in it? The intriguing challenge of this study is to consider how we think of God when his name is not mentioned explicitly in the texts. How can we do theological interpretation when God does not reveal himself in plain sight? As we will observe, the absence of God's name in the text does not preclude the knowledge of him, since his literary absence is precisely an aspect of Scripture that needs to be addressed, and that readers need to wrestle with, both theologically and in their own lived experience. Under the umbrella of theological interpretation, I also include other complementary methods to probe the question of absence in Song of Songs and Esther, such as literary analysis of the text concerning time, chapter 3, inner biblical allusions to Edenic garden and Israel's sacred space as a way to detect divine presence, chapter 4, the early history of interpretation of Passover and Purim in connection to divine deliverance, chapter 5, and canonical connections of the two books within the Hebrew Scripture, chapter 6. Why Song of Songs and Esther? These two books are part of the Megillat, a collection of 5 scrolls in the Hebrew canon that are associated with 5 Jewish festivals. These 5 scrolls include Song of Songs, Ruth, Ecclesiastes, Lamentations, and Esther. By placing these 5 books in a collection, the compiler must have perceived their commonality and interconnectivity within the Hebrew canon. In the Jewish liturgical calendar, Song of Songs heads the Megillat, and Esther concludes the Megillat. While Song of Songs is recited during Passover, the first festival in the Jewish calendar, Esther is recited during Purim, the last festival in that calendar, suggesting that these two books open and close the entire liturgical year. Most scholars consider Ruth and Esther together, but rarely do they consider the Song of Songs and Esther this way, except for Brittany Melton's recent monograph. Perhaps due to their difference in themes and literary forms,